1994, Harrison Ford played the character of Jack Ryan in a movie thriller, Clear and Present Danger. Today, I feel that there is a clear and present danger of an imminent war between the Western world and China. It's not going to be a war of battleships, no submarines, but it's going to be a war of technology, a war of innovation, a war of artificial intelligence versus genetic modification, data spying against facial recognition, satellite surveillance together with a race to conquer new planets in space. I'm Michael Taylor, and this is my investigative intelligence report. Let me share with you this quick story. I once met a Chinese lady and asked her for her number. She said, sex, 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 free sex tonight. I could not fucking believe what I'm hearing. Luckily, she had a friend standing nearby. And so she immediately turned and said to me, no, it's 666-3629. Anyway, here's the story. Here's what's happening today. The US and its European allies are declaring a trade war on China. I guess you all know that. However, China is playing a much more sophisticated game. It is using its technological capabilities to advance its goals without having to go to battle. And guess how she is doing that? Well, while American and European companies are standing in line like beggars, waiting for handouts from their governments, Chinese companies are selling 5G around the world. They are exploring synthetic biology to sustain food supplies. They're fucking buying Africa. They are racing to build smaller and faster microchips. And all this to grow China's technological supremacy. And what are Europe and the United States doing about it? They are calling for more protectionism. Now, I looked this up in the dictionary. Protectionism is another word for isolationism. In my vocabulary, this is called stupidism. That is stupid with an ism at the end. By the way, do you know the difference between America and a bottle of milk? In 200 years, the milk would at least have developed some sort of a culture. But seriously, what are the odds that things will change? And in whose favor? And And more importantly, what will happen if they do? In other words, who's going to win the war of innovation in the coming decade? Guys, let's face it. The reason why the Western world is losing ground to a dictatorship and a technological thief like China is because the interests of the private sector in the Western world are no longer aligned with those of their so-called democratic governments. Today, they are further apart than ever before. This has been happening while China is slowly and gradually evolving behind the scenes, lurking like a thief in the dark, waiting like a wolf to ambush Little Riding Hood. Who in his right mind would have ever imagined that China would move from being a country that steals and imitates technology to one that pioneers and champions it? And that did not happen overnight. It did not happen by accident. It did not happen by chance. Now, here's an interesting statistic for you. For the past 10 years or so, China's share of spending on technological innovation in the world has grown from, listen to this, from under 5% to over 23%. And that happened just recently in 2020, the year of the pandemic. Imagine a staggering 23%. That's fucking unbelievable. Now the problem is, if this growth continues at the current rates, China will overtake both the United States and Europe in spending on research and development by no later than 2025. So, while Europe and the United States are struggling with debt and with social and cultural decay, or should I say decadence, China is building entire new cities based on nothing but technology and innovation alone. Guys, I remember the days when I was living in Chiang Mai, the holy city of temples in Thailand. I got more than a dozen very tempting offers from different schools in Chengdu, the capital of China's Sichuan, I don't know how they call it, Sichuan province, to teach English. These guys want to learn, and they want to learn fast, and soon they will outperform all of us while we are sitting on our asses in front of our television screens, watching, whinging and whining Meghan and stupid and idiot Harry making a fool of themselves with Oprah. Meanwhile, China is investing in 5G and in artificial intelligence, and those investments have already paid off. Now this is a staggering proof that China is on its way to dominate the world through technology alone. In the end, I guess China finally got what they wanted. They managed to colonize the world, and they got away with it. In other words, they caught us with our pants down, and we're the least embarrassed about it. Just look how China gave rise to powerhouses companies. Look at Alibaba, for example, the e-commerce giant. which is China's closest thing to our Amazon. Then they have 10 cents, which developed the famous app WeChat. And let's not forget Baidu, the artificial intelligence and internet company. And then DJI, which is one of the world's largest makers of consumer drones. Then you have the likes of SenseTime, which provides facial recognition technology, allowing China to video surveil us. Guys, SenseTime is said to be, or is going to be, the world's most valuable artificial intelligence company worldwide, globally. And the problem is that all of this is happening while Europe and the United States are sitting on their asses, helplessly watching China advancing in each and every area of technology and achieving innovation like never before. And they're doing that through a military lens. I repeat, a military lens, as if China is going to invade us soon. It doesn't need to. It's not going to. Now, did you know that China is the only country in the world that actually built a wall to keep people out and not in? That reminds me. What the hell happened with that wall that Trump was building? Well, I don't know, maybe I should Google it or something, but this reminds me of something else. Why doesn't Mexico have an Olympic team? Well, because everyone who can run, jump, and swim is already in America. Anyway, while the Chinese companies have succeeded in knitting, like a spider, a secret global web of applications that gather data and collect our private information to hand them over to their oppressive regime, we are debating the ethics behind this entire charade. China has been killing millions of Uyghurs, is that how you say it, Uyghurs, Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, and other Turkic Muslims in Xinjiang since 2014 till this very day, while the whole world is watching and they're doing nothing about it. Of course, they are condemning it, but who gives a fuck? So what China did through these superpower companies is that it collected a trove of knowledge about us, while our Western bureaucratic and no longer democratic governments are quote-unquote monitoring the situation from afar. Listen to this. They are monitoring the situation from afar. And they are endlessly debating possible scenarios for retaliation. And maybe they are hoping that the Holy Spirit would descend upon them with alternative solutions. In other words, they are fucking helpless. They are weak. They are powerless. While China, a dictatorial power, is definitely winning the war of innovation. While the world is watching, China has been achieving breakthroughs in biotechnology, which will soon help solve some of humanity's most difficult challenges, from disease and famine to energy production and climate change. It has succeeded in gene editing. It encoded video in the DNA of bacteria. It even developed a new way of manufacturing nylon using microorganisms that are genetically engineered instead of petrochemicals. Now, what more do you want? Can you imagine the economic implications of such revolutionary innovations on the Western world, let alone the entire fucking planet? Believe me, they are going to be disastrous. There's a very well-known and highly respected global research institute called McKinsey. I've been reading one of their reports, and in it, the agency estimated the value of the applications in the field of biotechnology at some $4 trillion over the next 20 years. And who's getting the biggest share of that market? China. And all this is happening while the Western world is watching, eyes wide open or wide shut, whatever is your fantasy. Do you know why China never had a cricket team? Because they ate all the fucking bats. Now, besides eating bats, who happen to be the hosts of the coronavirus, our government should have 1,000,001 reason for them to worry and be skeptic when an autocratic country like China develops the capability of genetically engineering the DNA, let alone winning the race into space, which may become a reality soon, especially if they reportedly, allegedly, quote unquote, I don't want to be sued, develop partnerships with the likes of Elon Musk of SpaceX and maybe others like him. You may never know. Anything and everything is possible these days. This, guys, this is all a recipe for a disaster, and no one is willing to do anything about it. Now, this has just come to my mind. Did you know what's common between Colorado and Saudi Arabia? In both, it is legal to get stopped. Okay. Now, while the Western world keeps expressing its concern over China's defense capabilities, they seem to be unable to understand that the challenges that they are facing are much bigger. We have so far established that China has great ambitions for technological supremacy. But what we are unable to fathom is that these ambitions are not only aimed at achieving battlefield advantage, but rather shifting the battlefield ground itself. And while our eyes are focused on the battlefield, China is creating a new world order in which it would compete for global supremacy without one single shot fired. Not one. In other words, what our Western countries fail to realize is that China's high-tech is also its Trojan horse, and it is only a matter of time before China achieves world domination. What a fucking absurd situation we have put ourselves in, and what a narrow view of the world we managed to develop. not to mention the havoc we created by paralyzing the 5G network, regardless of whether it's good or bad for us. Not to forget TikTok. TikTok. TikTok is America's so-called security concern. What's so security concerns about it? Nevertheless, TikTok is still popular. Why? Because, as they say, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Now, we all heard American President Joe Biden promising to build back better and to restore global leadership. But the question is, how? He did promise, I believe, some $300 billion in R&D spending. Now, this is a good start, but will it fill the gap in private sector investment? That's too early to tell. To win the war of innovation, a revamp of the political and social divides is required before embarking on a quest to innovate. Now, this cannot happen while most of the money is being spent on the military, rather than non-defense spending on AI-related research and development. According to press reports that I've read recently, this requires doubling America's R&D budget to $32 billion each year between now and 2026. There's, I believe, a body in America called the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence, a very long name. It's a body which is headed by ex-Google chief Eric Schmidt and ex-Deputy Secretary of Defense Robert Work. They both worked under Presidents Obama and Trump. Now, one of their latest reports focused on restricting China's ability to manufacture state-of-the-art computer chips. I don't know why computer chips. The report advised that the US must keep at least 2 generations ahead of China's microelectronics manufacturing capabilities. But why microchips? What's so damn important about them? Well, if you want the answer, you can find it in the 750-page report, if you want to read it, which mostly focused on how to counter China's ambition to become a world leader in AI by 2030. However, it also expressed fears to lose military technical superiority to China. Clearly, the problem with America and the rest of the Western world is that they fail to act with speed and to carry out changes while there is still a window open. In comparison, China needs no president. It needs no Congress. It needs no approvals to act. It relies on the commands of one man, of one person, Xi Jinping, a tyrant and a dictator. And while the US Congress is embroiled in endless debates on whether computer chips which facilitate China's human rights abuses, Beijing is going ahead with plans to produce 70% of locally used chips by 2025, and the rest, they're gonna buy up as much as 90% of the rest. Meanwhile, the US Congress is conducting endless reviews of President Joe Biden's $37 billion plan to boost local output of semiconductors, which are very, very much needed by the declining automobile industry in America. This is happening while China's semiconductor makers have been seeking out second-hand, I repeat, second-hand equipment to do this. As simple as that. It's very simple. Now look at the contrast. See the contrast. Just like the Trump era, America's new government under Biden seems to be only interested in combating Chinese language know-how threats. For some strange fucking reason, the American administration believes that the Chinese language know-how is a national security threat. Imagine the American government focuses on this rather than seriously taking genuine objections by US companies who are more concerned about China's growing competitiveness. Thousands and thousands of American companies are now required to get authorities' clearance in an open economy, in a free economy. They have to get authorities' clearance for purchases and offers involving refined know-how with what the US government calls quote-unquote overseas adversary. How stupid! How idiotic! And while the US government is worried about the safety and financial dangers posed by Chinese language tech tools, as many as 4.5 million US corporations of all sizes fear that they will be impacted with compliance costs expected to attain $52 billion, and that's only within the first year of implementation of the rule, and then $20 billion each year after. Now, the problem with Western governments is that they are portraying their relations with China as a conflict of values. That is, democracy versus autocracies. Such rhetoric obscures private sector's companies called to work collectively on technological know-how. But what I don't understand is why don't the US and its allies simply combine efforts and outspend China? China's spending on research and development today matches the US's and its allies both combined. In no time, the world's most notorious dictatorship will become a worldwide chief. Obviously, the US and its allies have missed out on one important single fact. With technological know-how, they must be agile, but with their lengthy processes in place and their narrowed vision, China can and will outsmart its Western rivals in no time. Beijing has loads of levers to pull. She is the world's main provider of earth minerals, which are indispensable for producing cell phones, electronics, and army tools. And that's just one example. It is also the reason why China is planning for a world without American technology. It is plotting a path to go at it alone, vowing to spend big to fill in the gaps in innovation and avoid dependence on the United States and any other country for that matter. China is freeing up tens of billions of dollars for its tech industry to borrow. Its ambition is to become an innovative country. That's it. That's the whole story. That's how it's going to win. And in contrast, the United States, which has already climbed the ladder to the summit, wants to kick away China's ladder. However, what the Americans seem to have forgotten is that the road to the global peaks of technology is distinctly uphill.